Hello, I am Dr. Sheryl Randolph, and I am excited to be with MAARHCAC today. You know, it is Women's History Month, and what better time than to talk about amazing women that are doing amazing things. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited. From Midland, Texas. I was born actually in North Carolina, but we moved to Midland when I was about 2 years old. So I always say I am from Midland, Texas, and I'm a proud Midlander. Well, I definitely grew up there, elementary school all the way through high school. And I participated in all sorts of activities from volleyball to basketball to track. That one was short-lived, but track. Church is huge in our lives. My mother and father are pastors, and so church was what we did, and it shaped us. And I say us, me and my sisters and my brother. And so we would sing, and we did all sorts of things. We were kind of like the Clark sisters in Midland, so we were the Kenan sisters, and we would sing, and we just loved it. And so from there, I went to Oral Roberts University. So definitely my church rendering or growing up prepared me for that. So yes, Midland all the way until college, and then Oral Roberts University. Well, honestly, I thought I was going to be a famous singer.
Come on.
That was my goal. That was my desire. And I would use singing, I guess, as an intro kind of to speaking, because I've always been a talker.
Sure.
And just love to inspire people and encourage people. So growing up as I did with wonderful role models, my dad and my mom, and just watching ministry happen, and watching individuals' lives being changed. And I thought, this is amazing. And so my heart became very tender toward that. And I felt then that call that singing would be a part of my ministry, but it wouldn't be all of my ministry. I've always been, whatever I can do, Lord. So I was excited to just spread my wings in ministry and do whatever I could and whatever I was called to do to just make life better, to communicate the message of hope. Well, one night I remember I was singing, because again, that was the first thing I thought I was going to do. And then I just began to exhort, and I began to speak. And after that, several preachers and individuals that were in that, that was in that space, they were like, oh my goodness, you are such a preacher. And I was like, I'm a singer. I'm not a preacher. And even though I knew, something in me kept saying, okay, you know what, this is going to be your entrance, but preaching is what you'll do. And so I can't say I really thought it, but I was somewhat hesitant. Because a lot of times, especially in certain denominations, women preaching or women pastoring was not really welcomed, many years ago. It's a lot more welcoming now. But then, and so singing I knew would be acceptable, and it was comfortable. And I had to be willing to be pushed out of my comfort zone so that I could walk in the fullness of my assignment. So can't say I was always willing, but I always knew. We really just want to do what we want to do. But the interesting thing that I have learned is that when you really yield to God's plan, you'll find out it's what you do well, and then it'll be what you want to do. I mean, right now, I just kind of eat and breathe preaching and teaching and inspiring people. And so surrendering and saying yes really is a good thing, because it really puts you in a good place. And when you're being effective in what you're called to do, there is nothing like it. So I even encourage individuals, when you're struggling with something and you know that you should do, I always say, I'd rather err on the side of doing and trying than to live in regret and say, I wonder what would have happened had I yielded or had I said yes. So it may be challenging, but it's definitely worth it. The title of the book is Life Happens, Live Anyway.
Right.
And I've always wanted people to know that life is not perfect. And everybody in life has challenges, because sometimes when you're going through a difficult time, you kind of think it's just you.
Right.
And so some people need to know that life hits everybody. Everybody's situation may be different, but everybody gets hit. And here is the caveat to that we should know that we have the power to make a decision to live or not, you know. And when you know you have that power, you know life may change you, but it doesn't have to break you. And so I wanted to share my story, because sometimes when we're just smiling and we're, you know, people say, how you doing? And we say blessed and highly favored, that people will think, okay, they don't go through anything. And it took a lot of courage for me, I must admit, but to share my go through, but to also share my go to. That I went through some things, but I learned to go to God, the one who could turn things around. And he has no respect of person. And so that was my drive for writing the book, and to remind people that you're not just one chapter, you're a full book. And so you may have crying in this chapter, and you may have discouragement in this chapter, but if you keep living, you'll have a chapter with victory.
Nice.
And I just love utilizing all of the tools that God gives. And so that book, even though it was challenging to write because it was my life, those things I lived, but it was another tool to use for the kingdom, to give people hope, to give people encouragement, to remind people of how powerful they are and that they can choose to live. I say, you know what? Outlive your problems, outlive your difficulties, outlive your challenges. And if you keep waking up, eventually you're going to get up. Well, you know, growing up, and I think especially in the African-American culture, we don't put our business in the street.
Right.
You know, you deal with that at home, and it's quiet, but there's so many times we find individuals suffering in silence.
Sure.
And so I kind of felt like I had to step out of what I was used to and what I had been taught in order to put information out to say, you're not alone. You know, that everybody that's smiling, it doesn't mean that their life is perfect. You know, you see me and, you know, you think one thing, but I want to share with you what was really going on. And then I want to share with you strategies to help you combat that. You know, because when you read my book, you will see incidents to where culture would have given me permission to be bitter, to be angry, to walk in unforgiveness. People would say things like, I don't blame you. I wouldn't be nice. I wouldn't forgive, but that's not what God called me to do. And so that's why I wanted to share that and say, okay, you know, even though society or culture may say you can't do this or you justify, God has called us to love because he is love. He has called us to forgive because we are forgiven. And so he said, I need you to be an example that says, when you go through difficulty, now unto him that is able to keep you and to help you and to push you into what you can do to live your best life. And so it was difficult. The more I wrote it on paper, I was like, oh, I can't say that, let people know that. Then I write some, I said, oh no, I don't think they need to know that. But the Lord kept telling me, no, release that. No, release that. I was like, Lord, because oftentimes we have a fear of people judging us and seeing us differently. But I said, you know what, Lord, I'm more afraid of not releasing people into their destiny. I'm more afraid of holding back on you, and therefore, because we're all connected to somebody else, and them not walking into their destiny because I was afraid or I was, you know, hesitant to see what people would think. I said, you know what, Lord, as long as you're pleased and this is what you're telling me to do, I say yes to that. And as a result, oh my goodness, so many people have come to me, so many people have called me, so many people have written me messages and, you know, texts and said, this book helped start conversation between me and my spouse. This book helped me to forgive when I didn't think I could. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for being courageous and honest, because you were courageous. I could be courageous. So I just started high-fiving God. I said, you do know what you're doing, don't you? Yes. But sometimes it's worth the risk, because our go through in our life is not just for us.
Yeah.
It's for people we are connected to. And when you say yes to God and say that I'm your vessel, you better hold on, because he's going to use you in a plethora of ways. But when I hear that, I just receive that as confirmation that if I can share my story, somebody then will have the courage to share their story. If I can stand in victory, then others will know that they can stand in victory. So it took me a minute. I've been saying I was going to write this book for the last, probably honestly, 8 years. And it just took me, once I finally just said yes, 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 and connected with a phenomenal publisher, and she and I walking through it, it just brought that dream to fruition. And I'm so glad I did. Well, thank you. And let me say, yes, I feel all of that. All those things you said, yes, sometimes all of that. And I want people to know that you will. We are first human, and then we have this spiritual call and all of the things. The thing I love is that when you love what you do, you find the energy to get it done. But I also remind people that self-care is important. Even in the book, I have a chapter dedicated to self-care. And the beginning of that chapter talks about how I didn't do self-care well. That I kept running and I kept going until I found myself in a predicament and having a stroke at the age of 28. A mild stroke. And it was because I took too much on. I was trying to be all and do all. And there is such power in saying no to certain things, because when you give your divided attention to so many things, what you're called to do loses its potency.
Come on.
And God said, I don't want you to give your divided attention. I want you to be able to give your full attention to a variety of things.
Wow.
And so I learned to do that. And so I listened to my body. And when it starts telling me it's time to slow down, I slow down, because you need to regroup. Because here's what I've learned. People are meant to be fed out of your overflow, not out of your fumes.
Come on.
And we keep giving people things from fumes. And
I love that.
It's not good. It's not enough. But God said, let me fill you so that I can bring you to a place of overflow, and you can spill over into the lives of people and they get the fullness of what I'm trying to present. So self-care is part of a responsibility for individuals that have calls and assignments on their life. So when I deal with my children who are now adults, when I deal with them, I want to serve them from full cups. When I am mentoring the girls for my She program, I want to give them from a full cup. When I'm preaching to God's people, I want to give them from a full cup. So all of those things, when I'm consulting with schools, we want to serve from a full cup. And so I, speak to women and men and teenagers. You can do it all. But you have to give yourself time to refresh, to regroup, and then you get back out and you do, because when you do that, you serve well, because it's not fumes. It's from the fullness of who you are. Well, I have been preaching now for about 25 years.
Awesome.
And I've been pastoring Destiny Church, for which I founded, for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And so it's just been walking out that plan. Each time it was the next level and the next level and the next level. So as you say yes to God, you just know it has levels.
Wow.
And so I had to get in a place, like I said, especially being a female in ministry, because even if they started saying, okay, well, you can preach, but still not pastor.
Exactly.
And the Lord would say, but that's what I called you to do. I said, well, did you tell them? He was like, it's not my place to tell them. I just need you to walk in what I called you to do. Oftentimes, and I think I even said this Sunday when I was ministering, when God calls us to do things, we act like we were on a conference call. God said, you act like it was a conference call that everybody was listening. He said, no, I called you directly. It's not a conference call. People don't always hear what I'm calling you to do, but if you walk out what I call you to do, they will see what I've called you to do.
Come on.
So when I began to rest in that, and when people didn't agree, I'd say, okay, it wasn't a conference call. They were not on the call. They don't know. God was talking to me. And so I would have to say that. But he said, you know what? When you walk in your assignment, fruit will follow. And so I tell people that. I say, you know, the Bible says in the last days, I'll pour out my spirit upon all flesh. And when you say yes to what God is calling you to do, you fall into that, I'm pouring out my spirit upon all flesh. And so God said, if you just walk it out, they'll see the fruit. So I concentrate more on being a fruit bearer than proving to people who I am.
Come on.
I just let them see the fruit that fall, and then people will testify and say, you know what? And I've had several individuals do that at first said, you can't pastor, you can't do this, but they have to come back and say, you know what? We were wrong. Because I believe if a woman can carry the word, surely she can preach the word. You know, and people have said that for years, and it still takes a minute for people to get that. But I even teach women, I said, you know what? Earn your place at the table. And that doesn't mean compromising or whatever. That simply means be your authentic self and allow your yes to announce you into the room.
Wow.
And that's where I live. And I won't sit here like I got that overnight. It took years to mature into that. It took time to become comfortable with that. And so when you arrive to that place, and there's still more that God has for me to do, and I'm so excited, but I'm so confident in the place I walk in now. It has nothing to do with me, but everything to do with the one who called me and the one who equipped me. My job is just to say yes and to walk well in that. And my goal and my assignment and responsibility is to walk that out with confidence. There are young women looking at me. There are others looking, and they want to see the God in me and the confidence that he allows me to walk in. So confidence is attractive because people want to believe if you can do it, I can do it. So I take that responsibility on to say, you know what, when you see me, I want you to see that God is a good God. I want you to see that God is able to do all things. I want you to see that he can take somebody with flaws and failures and still do what he wants to do through them. And I want you to see that God has no respect of person, that what he does for me, he can do for you. Put a yes in your mouth and see what happens. Well, again, I am thrilled that it's much better. But it was challenging, and sometimes still continues to be challenging. And you would be looked at as second. You weren't always viewed as the first. I remember, you know, someone calling me one time, and they thought, based on it being Pastor Randolph, they thought that was a male preacher. And because someone was recommending me, and, you know, they were like, okay, well, I showed up. I didn't know that that was their thought. And so I show up and I said, I'm Pastor Randolph. And the pastor was like, no, I'm looking for the man Randolph. I was like, you invited me. And so it was a bit of difficulty. And he said, well, I don't know about that. I said, well, sir, here is what the situation is. You called for a guest preacher. I'm here. I don't preach. You don't have a guest preacher. I said, so it's really up to you. I'm fine. And here's what I need people to also understand. Humility is huge. Because I could have said, well, it's your loss and that's who you call. But you know what? God will give you humility. And, you know, I was very kind and I just said, okay. And, you know, they immediately put a platform or a podium for me on the floor and couldn't go up to the pulpit. And again, you got to be humble because the attention is on the call, not the person. And when I didn't allow that to block the message, God elevated me in that space. I went right to that floor and I did what I did because I believe his exact words were, we'll let you testify. I said, that's fine. And so I testified probably like it had never been done before. And my testifying was preaching. I mean, you know, that's just what I do. And when I finished, he even came and apologized. He said, forgive me. He said, because you are doing what you are called to do. He said, and pray for me that my eyes will be open and that I can step into new. See, when we let God be God.
That's big right there for him to come back on that. Come on.
Be the, well, this is me and this is that. I said, God, I'm your servant.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not telling people to just take the back seat and let people sell you short. No, but the Bible teaches us that your gift will make room for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes the room's not ready for you.
Come on.
Until you help them become ready for you.
Come on.
And so because I could walk in that humility and because I could still walk in my femininity and I walked in and did what God told me to do and it was powerful. I mean, even all the men who were just kind of like Nate said, they were scratching their heads and one man walked up and high-fived me. He said, "You a bad preacher."
Come on.
And so I was just, and again, you have to be able to handle that instead of, I knew it. I just said blessings to you. But when I got in my car, I was like, show him, Lord. So he will do it if we walk, because you have to walk in humility and power at the same time. Right. You got to be humble to God's assignment, but powerful enough to step in the place he calls you to step into.
Come on.
And when you can do that, he knows he can trust you. So I told him I don't prove to people who I am. I just walk in the confidence of knowing who I am. Yeah. That's why I tell people I don't get my identity from other people. And that's why people need to stop getting theirs from other people. We'll say who people say that we are. Who does God say that you are?
Come on.
And so I live in that space. And so I'm smart enough to know that everybody will not receive me. But I'm also smart enough to know that that's not my problem.
Man, come on.
And I'm good with me, and I'm good with the call God has on me, and I just do me doing him. So I think when we get to that place and we're confident, when we know who we are and we're not trying to be someone else, then again, God can trust us with the assignment and we can do effective work. As far as my profession. So I've been a teacher and a principal and a director at the central office. And so I left that a few years ago and pursued my doctorate. And I had the opportunity, as I always do, or still do, to travel to school districts and consult with staffs and principals and, individuals that's in education. And I would hear that so often from young girls and other women. I wish I had the confidence you had. How did you know, you could walk in that boss position? How were you able to be all of these being these leading positions? And I said, you know what? I want to mentor other individuals. I'm graced because my mother was my best mentor and showed me how to walk as a powerful woman. I had other ladies come into my life that sold into me. And I believe that empower people. And so what you have is not just for you, but it's for those that you are connected to. It's for the next generation. And so I then began to just say, okay, what would that look like? And as a result, I am the founder of the organization SHE, SHE, and that stands for successful, healthy, and empowered. Because all of those things need to be a part of who we are. And for girls to stay up and say, I am she, I'm successful, I'm healthy, I'm empowered. For women to say that I am she, I'm not trying to be he, I am she. And I'm good with that. So what does success look like? What does healthy look like? What does being empowered? So we break it down as to what those look like. Everything from building your character to walking in integrity, for being a person of your word, to dealing with conflict, to being respectful, being responsible, all of those things. Because you could say, I'm this or I'm that or I'm a preacher, but you don't have the integrity to keep you in a place or to take you to that opportunity. So to help you not just get an opportunity or a position or a place, but to be able to handle it. We teach you how to deal with peers because, dealing with a male is different than dealing with a female. So understanding the knowledge of that. So it's all of that. So we have fun with it. And they lead successful, healthy, and empowered. And so we start with women. Someone told me the other day, you leaving the men out? I said, no, I'm just trying to get us together for y'all. I'm trying to help us. We're going to be good for y'all. So my
I don't
goal
see how
is to
anybody could
expand
ever
that.
disagree with you.
Absolutely. They were like, okay, well, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, I'm trying to make sure we good for y'all. And I plan to expand that in the future and to just drop the S for the men and just be like, I am he. I'm healthy. I'm empowered and I want to be successful. So we're working on that for the future. But right now it's for girls and women. Right. And we will start even launching classes for that via social media. So I want people to be on the lookout for that as well, that you can get a session with me as we walk through that, your own personal session. But right now we're doing it in groups. We're going into schools, into churches, and just developing individuals so that they can be the best version of themselves. Well, who knows what God is doing?
Come on.
But I was asked that, especially the last few weekends as I've been doing the book tour, when is the next book coming? So I am anticipating another book. So just keep following. I do have a song that is a companion to my book. It's out now on all digital platforms, and it's called Live Anyway as well.
Awesome.
So if you haven't again picked that up or downloaded it, please do that. We're doing an extension to that. I've already recorded my audio book, and so that will be coming out shortly.
Awesome.
Well, shortly. That could be within the next year, but we'll say shortly.
Yeah.
A devotion has already been created as well with the Live Anyway, because again, there's so much to unpack from Life Happens, Live Anyway. And if we can get people to understand that life is worth living and getting up from out of your situation, it really is a choice that you can make because God has given you the power to do so. So that will always be a part of me. And always unpacking that, the next layer and the next layer. You know, I love pastoring and I will continue to do that as long as God gives me grace to do it. So just being here and there and doing what he has called us to do, expanding the She program so that will be in more cities. So it'll be in a city near you. So just keeping that on the radar. So all of those different things, there's just so much. And in time, we will unpack those other things. But I'm excited about next level. You know, I tell people, come on, you got to have that next level thinking because God wants to move you to the next dimension. So I still have that same yes that I gave him years and years ago. And it gets a little bigger sometimes because the assignment gets bigger. But he never calls you to do anything that he does not equip you for. And when I get out of my head and get into his head, I know that all things are working together for my good. So I'm excited. So again, this is Sheryl Randolph, and this is my MAARHCAC moment for Women's History Month.